Next up is someone I asked around, and his name came up again and again and again. If you want to talk with somebody that has approached culture from a different, a little bit unique angle, you have to talk to Ruben Timmerman. And Ruben is with me now. Ruben, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. Nice, fun to see in this digital thing here. We're actually in a boat still. I like it.
Exactly. We have the pirate theme is totally has stuck with us. Ruben has been. Where have you been? When have you been? 2015 at the Pirate Summit, I think, right?
Something like that. Yeah, I remember in Cologne, and there were actually people dressed up like pirates and stuff. So it was really fun. So this is almost as good.
Yeah. It's not the same, and this is not Pirate Summit, but this is Pirate Life, and it's different. And I also don't want to compare the two because Pirate Summit, you have the atmosphere being in this outdoor, arty space. Nevertheless, online has a few, let's say, possibilities or opportunities that you cannot have in a physical location, and we are experimenting, and we're trying our best. Every iteration is, or every event is another iteration, and would love to get all of your feedback out there as well. Is it working? Is it not working? What should we do differently? So, Ruben, when I started this, I said that several people pointed me to you, and your story, I think, started with your unique approach. You've built a company from 0 to 60, Springest, from 0 to 60 across 2 locations without managers. So,
correct.
Okay, this is 2000. When was it? 14, I think, or 13 even. Right? Is that correct?
When we started, you mean, or?
Yeah, when you started this...
a bit earlier, actually, 2009, but we implemented Holacracy in 2012.
Oh, yeah.
So first it was just chaos, and then came the structure.
I want to hear about that story. How from 2009 to 2012, and why in 2012, why did you choose Holacracy, and where are you now?
Yeah, that's the whole question, right? When you start a startup, you just go, and you have the founder usually, and maybe 1 or 2 or 3 other people, and then some people join. And at some point, let's say when you're around 10 people, that's when I started noticing, it doesn't work to just keep shouting at everybody when the founder is just shouting, let's go here, let's go there, let's do this, let's do that. So it's kind of like your efficiency goes down. And it's good to know that the efficiency is really high in a startup. When you're with let's say 10 people, it's still perfect for everybody to look at the founder or at the founding team and just take directions and go where you need to go immediately. But from there on, it starts to crack a little bit because people cannot all listen to you at the same time. It's a bit like the pizza rule from Amazon, from Werner Vogels. I think he coined that, like, if a team goes beyond 8 or something, you cannot share a pizza, then you cannot be aligned properly on your purpose or on your project. So that's when I started to feel that it started to crack up a little bit. And then people from the outside started suggesting, maybe you need to, hire a manager or make someone a manager so that things can be managed and structured. And that's where I got sort of a bit of a, shortcut or fuse in my brain. Like, I don't know, that doesn't feel good. I had experience with another small company that we ran up to 15 people, and it didn't feel right. And so I went searching for something else. And then I found Holacracy through a connection through Getting Things Done, the productivity method from David Allen that I was really a fan of. And I basically asked, I want Getting Things Done, the structure of that and the language and the clarity and also the consciousness that you get from that system. And I want that in how we work together. And then a G2D trainer suggested me to check out Holacracy, and that's how we started.
Okay, I remember Holacracy was a very big, let's call it the hype maybe, around that time, between, I would say, 2010-ish to, 2014 at some point. What at least I heard that Holacracy doesn't work, big overhead, a lot of rules, but work doesn't get done. Zappos famously changed to Holacracy. A lot of people left, etc. That was a little bit later. Does it work? Honest answer.
Well, you're
just
asking
between you and me.
Yeah. Let's not tell anyone it doesn't work. No, it works if you really do it. If you commit to it, which is what Zappos did, and I think it worked and works for them still. And there's a big company in the Netherlands called Bol.com. It's like the Amazon of the Netherlands. They're really still quite a lot bigger than Amazon. In terms of people in the Netherlands, there are only 3,000, and they have also switched to Holacracy, but not full on, although they do it at the team level. So for us, it totally does work. And the thing is, if you do half of it, you might end up worse, actually. So the thing is, you replace management with something else. You cannot just throw out management and then do nothing else and just hope for the best. So if you really replace it with a full self-governing, self-managing system, then it can work. And that's what Holacracy offers. If you really look at all the angles, how you structure meetings, how you decide who does what, how you communicate, there's all kinds of parts of the system. And those parts of the system essentially replace things that managers used to do. And in some examples or some parts, it's not that the manager is replaced by the system, but the manager is replaced by someone that used to be just a normal employee managing themselves. So a simple example is prioritizing projects. That's more up to the person actually doing the project. So that's a part of management that's replaced. But as you will immediately realize, if people are not good at choosing priorities, or if it's unclear how they should choose, or what, based on what strategy, then it falls apart. And that's what very often happens, that companies don't properly implement it, don't properly implement all the angles of it, and then it falls apart. And then it's worse than managing, because then you have no management, then there's no structure, and then you're screwed. But it can work, and I think it makes people happier than let's say most managers do, because for management it really depends on the manager, and most people are pretty bad managers. So on average, management doesn't really work well. That's the thing.
Because we are always we want to be very practical, and I want to get an insight into what does your workday look like today? So how do you work?
Yeah, I think it's not that much different from let's say non-Holacracy running companies. So maybe the difference is that there's more clarity and more fluidity and granularity. So things are smaller because they're more concrete. So it's not, Ruben is not the founder. I am the founder, but I have about 30 roles that are very specific. So I have a role, for instance, for user experience feedback, because I'm good at that. So I'm sometimes invited in a meeting or in a task in Asana that we use and say, hey, can you, Ruben, give us feedback on this in your role as user experience feedback? And that's a very small and specific role that I'm then asked for. So what is different is not that I give that feedback, because as a founder, I might too, I might just jump in and give feedback on something, or might even be asked. But now there's the clarity of why I am asked and in what role I'm doing that, plus what I am accountable for. And this accountability is also online. At roles.springest.com, you will actually find everyone's roles at Springest, all the roles that exist. And on average, people have 7 or 8 roles, and I have about 30 because I'm involved in a lot of small things. And there is very clear why I am there, what I'm doing, what can be expected of me. That's the bigger difference than that the work itself looks different from the outside.
So you have 40-something roles. If you are called into 40 meetings because you have a certain role, for 40 different meetings,
that wouldn't work. No. So that's the thing. It's not that all those roles automatically translate into meetings. For instance, that UX role is a nice example. It's a small role. I do it for maybe 1 or 2 hours a week, but it's mostly just a task or a Slack message to take a look at something when I have time, and usually I have time, in the same day roughly. That role actually lives in a circle, a team, and that team has meetings, but I'm not invited to those meetings because my role is small and very specific. So it doesn't mean that I am in that team and thus I have to join the meetings. No, the role is about giving UX feedback, which is a very specific part of the product circle in our case. So product is what we call, the whole function of product development. And they invite me whenever it's needed, or they give me a task usually actually to just give feedback. Or sometimes, of course, there is a meeting where there's a demo or something bigger, and then I'm invited for just that. So it's always very specific and clear what needs to happen and who is invited to do it. And on top of that, by the way, in holacracy, a role doesn't mean that you have to do something. It only means that it can be expected of you, but I can say no. Anyone can say no. And that's something that comes with holacracy very strongly, that we expect people to be adults and not children. And that sounds a bit funny maybe, but there is a parent-child dynamic, which is sort of a psychological term, a construct where, you know, someone will say, oh, management fucked it up, or I'm not responsible, or I don't care, or I'm too busy, I don't know. And in holacracy, we expect people to be grown-ups, to be adults, and to be able to say no. So it's, for instance, a very bad thing to think on someone else's behalf and think, oh, they look really busy, I should not ask them. No, we want you to ask, and we want the other person to say, I'm sorry, I'm too busy, I have other priorities, I can do it in a week. And if that's not enough, then you have to figure out something else, or you have to convince me that what you ask of me is more important than what I'm doing now. And with that, you might feel already like, oh, so you have to maybe negotiate a bit, you have to maybe be transparent about what you're doing, and those are all indeed very important skills for self-management, and also in the self-management system holacracy.
Very, very interesting. Would you recommend holacracy to other companies or startups? And if so, what would be the characteristics of that startup or company?
Yeah, cool question. So I do all the time, obviously. I like it, but you have to want it as well. You have to want it basically, and you have to really invest in it. And I think to put it into the extreme, which is nice because we only have 3 minutes, and then it's like really thought-provoking, is let's say slavery was still legal or doable, maybe not even legal, like in some countries in the world it's still happening. Would you recommend not doing slavery or doing slavery? Essentially, slavery is the most efficient way to work, right? You just slave people into the ground and you get new people, and that's very efficient. So if you are fine with doing anything to succeed, then holacracy is not such a great idea, because it's not maybe the most efficient way. If you want to treat people like they are children instead of adults, then it's better to do the classical management thing, where the manager is sort of the shit umbrella. The manager takes care of stuff and tells people what to do. That's great, but it doesn't make people happy, and in the long run also not productive. They tend to run out of gas after a while, maybe become unhappy and quit the job after a few years, especially young people. And with holacracy, and I think self-management in general, it's part of something bigger. That's the question. Do you want to also keep your people happy and productive in the long run? Do you want to really have them put in their real energy, their full personality into the job? Then it's a great idea to do holacracy. But if you don't care so much about that, or about people's happiness, people's productivity, and you care more about just succeeding, just fuck it, do it, and just get out there and grow no matter what, then don't do it, because then you will be frustrated because you cannot squeeze the most out of people. And I think that's the tough answer. If you care, then you should. If you don't really care, then don't do it, because then it will just hurt and make it really visible that you actually don't care.
Super, super interesting. I would even argue that slavery doesn't really work in a creative economy, but that might be for... That
might be indeed, yeah, that's true. It depends, but many businesses have parts that are creative, but bigger parts that are not so creative. I mean, even at a company like Apple, like most functions will be not that creative. And that's the same for most startups too. You know, there's a lot of, deals to close and just work to do. And I think especially the way many managers and also aspiring managers or startup people who say they don't want to be a manager look at people as just, robots that have input and output. But if you go beyond that, then definitely, the humanness of holacracy is a good idea.
Ruben, thank you so much. Time is up, unfortunately, because I really love the topic. I could also speak quite a bit on this topic, because we have not holacracy, but a lot of the ideas implemented at Pirate.
Nice.
But that's for a different discussion then. Thanks so much. Ruben will most likely be at a networking table, just the Race Your Culture networking table, just saying hi if you have questions.
I'll join now as well. So
yeah, if you have questions, just ask him. Ruben, thanks so much for sharing the insights. Very thought-provoking. Thank you.
Thanks. Have fun.
Thanks.